Dr. Bach, in our previous lectures, we talked about the formation of the British political system is a long and gradual process. And obviously, the Civil War played a huge role in this journey. So what are the causes of the Civil War?
Well, that's a big question, and one which has caused a great deal of historical debate, and I think it would be fair to say it's not a debate that has ever been fully resolved. If you go back to the 19th century, one of the great historians of the late 19th century, Stuart Gardner, the man who gave the first Ford lectures at Oxford, he wrote a 19 volumes of constitutional history of the period 1603-1660. And in his work, which was, he did a lot of work in archives and a lot of original historical work and research. Gardner puts forward the view that really it's the struggle for constitutional and religious liberty that is the main cause of the Civil War and of the constitutional changes that happen. In the 20th century, there's been a great deal of attention also paid to the Marxist interpretation of the Civil War, which sees the Civil War as reflecting underlying economic and social changes, and that it's a new capitalist class which is asserting itself against an old feudal aristocracy. I think it's probably fair to say that that Marxist analysis, which fits the sort of Marxist, the general Marxist pattern, doesn't quite work with the Civil War, because many of the old feudal aristocracy had already disappeared, and the people who were in their place were the beneficiaries of the dissolution of the monasteries and the distribution of monastic lands. And indeed, there has been a third interpretation by the Oxford professor Trevor Roper, who turned the Marxist idea upside down and said that it wasn't the result of a rising gentry and a rising capitalist class, but it was a result of those gentry who were either falling or being excluded from court and from power. So there are very different interpretations. I think myself that although there's something to be said for all of these interpretations, I wouldn't underestimate the importance of religious conflict. I think, today, when religion is much, much less important in politics, it's very easy to underestimate the depth of feeling and the motivation that exists as a result of religious conflict. I mean, later in the 17th century, in the 1670s, the origin of political parties and of the two-party system in Britain is all about a religious issue, whether a Catholic should be allowed to become the King of England. And so I think that we should give due weight to religion. And again, remember that 1637, when Charles attempted to impose upon Scotland his own Laudian, I mean by that following the ideas of Archbishop William Laud, that view of Anglicanism and of the Church and the rule of bishops, it was that attempt which triggered the Civil War, although it took 5 years to do it.
Yes. So in your opinion, the cause of the Civil War is mainly religious?
I would say that religion has a big part to play with it. And you also need to put it in the context of an English parliament, which is much noisier, which is much more contentious than anything that you will find in Europe. I mean, in the 1620s, Charles had tried to work with Parliament, but Parliament had resisted his attempts to levy finance without parliamentary assent. It had asserted the right of people to freedom from imprisonment without trial, with freedom to habeas corpus. Charles was so exasperated with Parliament and its constant demands for effectively limitations on the royal prerogative that he broke free of Parliament and governed for 11 years on his own, what those who don't agree with it call the 11 years tyranny.
Yes.
And so the sense of entitlement to liberties on the part of Englishmen plays a big part in the context also of the Civil War.
Yes, yes. So can I say that the Parliament in the Britain is more autonomous or self-asserting than parliaments in other places in Europe?
It's much more assertive, certainly.
Okay.
I wouldn't go as far as to say it was autonomous. I mean, even today...
It's too advanced, right?
Well, I mean, in theory, even today, Parliament is called by the Queen. The Queen calls and dissolves Parliament. So in theory, the monarch still has that power. In practice, of course, the monarch today has no power at all.
Okay.
But Parliament was asserting itself in the 1610s, 20s, and particularly the 1640s.
Okay, thank you very much. That's very interesting. Thank you.